You thought they were the answer to your prayers. You imagined a future, built hopes, and emotionally invested your heart. Then suddenly, it ended. No clear reason, no satisfying closure, just silence, distance, or disappointment. And it hurt. But sometimes what feels like heartbreak is actually divine protection. Allah sees what you cannot see. He knows conversations that would have happened, pain that would have unfolded, and consequences your heart was too attached to notice. Sometimes the greatest mercy is not giving you what you want. It is removing what was never meant for you. Emotional intensity is not divine confirmation. Sometimes feelings become so strong that they start to feel like a sign from Allah. You feel close to someone, conversations flow easily, your heart becomes attached, and you begin to think, this must be meant to be. But in Islam, strong emotions are not proof of destiny. Feelings come from the human heart, while what is truly written comes from Allah's perfect knowledge. Attraction, chemistry, and emotional comfort can be very powerful. They can make you overlook flaws, ignore warning signs, or rush decisions. Shaitan can even beautify certain attachments to make them feel deeper than they actually are. This is why Islam teaches balance, not letting emotions alone guide life-changing choices. Allah sees what you cannot see. He knows someone's hidden character, their future actions, and how that relationship might affect your faith, your mental peace, and your long-term happiness. What feels comforting today could become a source of pain tomorrow. And what feels like loss today could actually be protection from deeper heartbreak later. Sometimes Allah allows a connection to form just to teach you something. Patience, self-respect, reliance on Him, or emotional maturity. It was never meant to last forever. It was meant to grow you. That does not make your feelings fake. It simply means the purpose was different from what you imagined. A good Islamic approach is to always keep your heart connected to Allah first. Mak istikhara, seek guidance, observe character, and prioritize Deen over emotions. Real blessings bring not just excitement, but also peace, stability, and barakah. So if someone leaves your life or things do not work out despite strong feelings, remind yourself gently. Strong emotions are not always divine confirmation. Sometimes Allah separates what only feels right from what is truly right, for your dunya, your akhirah, and the protection of your heart. Allah removes what threatens your future, not just your present. Sometimes we judge a relationship only by how it feels right now. If the conversations are good, the emotions are strong, and the person seems kind, we assume everything will remain that way. But Allah does not only see the present moment, He sees the full future. He sees what will grow, what will fade, what will change, and what consequences may come years later. This is why sometimes He removes someone not because they are bad today, but because they could become harmful for your future, your peace, or your faith. There are things we often overlook when emotions are involved. Small habits, differences in values, lack of commitment to Deen, emotional immaturity, or character traits we excuse because we are attached. At the start, these issues may seem minor, but over time they can become heavy burdens. Allah, in His mercy, sometimes protects you early, so you do not have to face deeper pain later. Think about how many people later say, "I wish I had seen the signs earlier." Allah already saw those signs. He knew the arguments that might have happened, the disappointment that might have come, or the emotional exhaustion you would have faced. What you saw as potential happiness, Allah may have seen as a slow path toward distress. And sometimes the threat is not just emotional, it can be spiritual. A relationship can gradually weaken your connection with Allah. You may start compromising on boundaries, neglecting prayer consistency, or reshaping your values just to keep someone in your life. Allah cares deeply about your akhirah, not just your temporary comfort. Protecting your faith is always a higher mercy than protecting your feelings. It is also possible that Allah is protecting your future family. The person you choose does not only affect you, it shapes your home, your children, your environment, and the emotional climate you will live in daily. Allah, who knows generations ahead, may remove someone so your future household is built on stronger foundations. At the moment of separation, this wisdom is hard to see. Pain naturally makes you focus on what you lost rather than what you were saved from. But with time, reflection, and trust in Allah, many people eventually realize that what hurt them initially actually spared them from something heavier. So, when someone leaves your life, try to shift your perspective gently. Instead of only asking, "Why did this end?" also ask, "What might Allah be protecting me from?" That question opens the heart to trust rather than bitterness. Allah's plan is never careless. When He removes something, it is not random. It is measured, wise, and full of mercy, even when it arrives through heartbreak. And sometimes the greatest protection is not fixing what you have now, but safeguarding the future you cannot yet see. Rejection can be redirection. From spiritual harm, rejection hurts. Whether it comes through silence, distance, broken plans, or words you never expected to hear, it can shake your confidence and leave your heart heavy. You may question yourself, your worth, and even your du'as. But sometimes rejection is not humiliation, it is protection. And in many cases, it is Allah redirecting you away from something that could have slowly harmed your spiritual life. Not every relationship damages faith in obvious ways. Often it happens quietly. Your thoughts become constantly occupied with that person. Your salah becomes rushed. Your focus in worship weakens. You begin adjusting your values to keep the relationship comfortable. Maybe certain boundaries blur. Maybe priorities shift. Maybe pleasing the person starts to feel more urgent than pleasing Allah. You might not notice it immediately, but your heart gradually becomes more attached to creation than to the Creator. Allah, in His mercy, sometimes interrupts that path. He removes someone not because you are unworthy, but because He wants your heart anchored in Him first. Allah loves when a believer returns to Him sincerely. Sometimes a broken attachment brings you back to deeper dua, more honest prayer, more reflection, and a stronger awareness of your dependence on Him. What felt like rejection may actually be a gentle pull back toward spiritual balance. There is also wisdom in how certain relationships can shape character. Some connections increase gratitude, patience, and faith. Others increase anxiety, insecurity, or emotional dependence. If a relationship was making you compromise your modesty, your ethics, or your peace, Allah's removal may be an act of mercy protecting your Deen before the damage deepens. And remember, Allah is Al-Alim, the one who knows completely. He knows not just actions, but intentions, hidden habits, future changes, and spiritual consequences you cannot foresee. What looks safe emotionally may not be safe spiritually. Allah always prioritizes your akhirah over temporary comfort, because eternal success matters far more than temporary happiness. Rejection can also teach sincerity. When people leave, you learn to turn to Allah without distraction. Your du'as become more genuine. Your reliance becomes stronger. You start understanding that ultimate security is not in people staying, but in Allah never leaving you. That realization strengthens the heart in ways comfort never can. So if you faced rejection, try not to see it only as loss. Sometimes Allah is not closing a door to hurt you. He is redirecting you to protect your faith, your dignity, and your future. What feels like someone walking away may actually be Allah guiding you closer to Him. And that redirection, even if painful now, often becomes one of the greatest blessings later. Closure does not always come from people. One of the hardest parts of any ending is the search for closure. You want answers. You want clarity. You want someone to explain why things changed, why promises broke, or why they suddenly walked away. You feel that if you just had one honest conversation, one clear explanation, your heart would finally settle. But in reality, closure does not always come from people. Sometimes it comes from trusting Allah even when no explanation arrives. People are limited. They may not understand their own actions fully. They may avoid difficult conversations. Some simply choose silence because it is easier for them, even if it leaves you confused. Waiting for them to explain can keep you emotionally stuck. You keep replaying memories, rereading messages, imagining different outcomes. This can quietly drain your peace and delay healing. Islam teaches something powerful here. Not every answer is meant to come from creation. Some answers come from Tawakkul, trusting Allah's wisdom without needing every detail. When you accept that Allah knows what you do not, your heart begins to rest. You stop chasing explanations from someone whose role in your life has already ended. True closure often begins when you shift the question. Instead of asking, "Why did they do this to me?" you begin asking, "What is Allah teaching me through this?" That change moves your focus from people to growth, from confusion to reflection. It opens space for healing instead of endless speculation. There is also mercy in unanswered questions. Sometimes knowing every detail would hurt more than help. Allah, in His gentleness, may protect you from information that would burden your heart unnecessarily. He gives you enough experience to grow, but not always every hidden detail. Another important reminder is that closure is not forgetting. It is understanding that what happened was part of your journey, accepting it without bitterness, and moving forward with trust. Islam does not ask you to suppress emotions. It encourages patience, dua, reflection, and reliance on Allah so your healing remains balanced and sincere. You can find closure in prayer. Speak to Allah openly. Express your hurt. Ask for peace. Ask for understanding. The one who created your heart knows exactly how to calm it. Many people discover that the peace they searched for in conversations with people actually came quietly during sujood, during sincere dua, or during moments of reflection with Allah. So, if you never received the apology, explanation, or conversation you hoped for, remind yourself gently. Closure is not always given by people. Sometimes Allah closes the chapter Himself so you can begin a better one. And when you trust His wisdom, even unanswered endings start to feel peaceful rather than painful. What requires you to beg for basic respect is not meant for you. Love should never cost you your dignity. Care should never require you to beg. And respect should never feel like a reward you have to earn. If you constantly found yourself asking for basic honesty, basic attention, or basic commitment, that imbalance itself was a sign. What is written for you by Allah will not demand that you lower your self-worth just to stay chosen. Sometimes attachment makes us tolerate what we normally would not accept. You excuse disrespect. You ignore inconsistency. You convince yourself that if you are more patient, more understanding, more available, things will improve. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin shrinking parts of yourself just to maintain the connection. You become afraid to speak your needs clearly because you fear losing the person. But Islam teaches honor. Allah has already honored you. Your value does not increase because someone stays, and it does not decrease because someone leaves. If a relationship constantly makes you feel small, uncertain, or unappreciated, that emotional strain is not love, it is imbalance. A healthy connection brings mutual respect. It does not leave one person chasing while the other remains distant. It does not create a pattern where you must repeatedly prove your worth. When something is truly written for you, you will not feel like you are competing for basic treatment. You will feel seen, valued, and secure. There is also a deeper spiritual lesson here. When you beg a person for what only Allah can guarantee, security, validation, peace, your heart can become overly dependent on creation. Allah sometimes removes someone to remind you that your dignity comes from Him first. When your heart is anchored in Allah, you do not chase what disrespects you. Respect is not arrogance. It is balance. It means knowing your boundaries and honoring them. It means walking away when your peace is repeatedly disturbed. It means trusting that what Allah has written for you will come without you having to sacrifice your self-respect. If someone required you to constantly beg for reassurance, clarity, or loyalty, perhaps Allah removed them to restore your sense of honor. What feels like loss may actually be recovery. Recovery of your dignity, your standards, and your inner strength. And remember this: what is truly meant for you will not require humiliation to maintain. It will grow with ease, respect, and sincerity. Allah does not write relationships that destroy your self-worth. He writes what protects your heart. And sometimes protection begins by removing what made you beg for what should have been freely given. Peace is a sign. Persistent confusion is a warning. One of the quiet signs Allah places in our lives is inner peace. It is not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is simply the absence of anxiety, the presence of clarity, and a steady feeling in the heart that things are balanced. And while no relationship is completely free from challenges, a connection that constantly creates confusion, emotional instability, and doubt deserves careful reflection. When something is healthy, even its difficulties come with honesty and effort from both sides. You may face disagreements, misunderstandings, or life pressures, but there is still clarity. You know where you stand. You feel respected. You feel emotionally safe. Peace does not mean perfection. It means stability. But persistent confusion is different. It is when you are always guessing. One day you feel valued, the next day distant. Promises feel uncertain. Words and actions do not align. You find yourself overthinking simple interactions, searching for hidden meanings, and constantly questioning whether you truly matter to that person. This ongoing uncertainty can quietly exhaust your heart. Islam values tranquility. Allah describes marriage as a source of sakina, calm, comfort, emotional safety. This teaches us something important. Relationships are meant to bring balance, not constant turmoil. if a connection repeatedly disrupts your emotional and spiritual peace, it may not be aligned with what Allah intends for your well-being. Sometimes attachment makes confusion feel normal. You tell yourself to be patient, to give more time, to ignore the uneasiness. But your heart often senses imbalance before your mind accepts it. That uneasy feeling is not always weakness. Sometimes it is awareness. There is also a spiritual dimension. Constant emotional stress can affect your worship, your focus, and your overall mental health. When your heart is overwhelmed by uncertainty, it becomes harder to maintain inner calm in other areas of life. Allah, in His mercy, may remove a source of persistent confusion so your heart can regain its stability. Peace also grows from clarity of intentions. When both people value honesty, commitment, and faith, the relationship naturally becomes steadier. But when intentions are unclear, mixed signals often follow, and mixed signals rarely build lasting peace. If Allah has removed someone whose presence constantly left you anxious or uncertain, try to see it as restoration rather than loss. The quietness you feel afterward, even if mixed with sadness, can slowly transform into relief. That relief is often the return of emotional balance. Trust that what Allah truly writes for you will not keep your heart in continuous confusion. It will bring steadiness, mutual respect, and emotional safety. Challenges will still exist, but they will not erase your peace. And sometimes the greatest mercy is not in holding on, but in being released from what kept your heart unsettled. What is written will find you without desperation. One of the most comforting beliefs in Islam is that what Allah has written for you will reach you, no matter how complicated the path seems. And what is not written for you will never stay, no matter how hard you try. This understanding brings calm to the heart. It removes the pressure to force, chase, or exhaust yourself, trying to secure something that Allah has not destined. Sometimes, when a relationship ends, the biggest fear is not losing the person. It is the fear that you lost your only chance at happiness. You start thinking, what if no one better comes? Or, what if I missed what was meant for me? But Allah's plans are not limited. He is not restricted by timing, distance, or circumstances. If something truly belongs in your life, Allah can bring it in ways you never expected. Desperation often comes from fear. Fear of loneliness, fear of uncertainty, fear of the future. But Islam teaches reliance on Allah, not panic about what is ahead. Tawakkul means trusting that Allah's timing is wiser than your urgency. It means believing that delay is not denial, and that every phase of waiting has purpose. When you try to force what is not meant, it often drains your emotional energy. You overthink, over-explain, over-compromise, and sometimes even sacrifice your values. But what Allah has written does not require you to lose yourself to keep it. It comes with a sense of ease, even if effort is still needed. There is also wisdom in preparation. Sometimes Allah delays certain relationships because He is preparing you first. Growth, maturity, healing, and stronger faith often happen in the waiting period. Without that preparation, even a good relationship might struggle. Allah's timing ensures that when something arrives, you are ready to handle it wisely. Trusting destiny does not mean being passive. It means doing your part with sincerity, making dua, improving yourself, maintaining good character, while leaving outcomes in Allah's hands. You take steps, but you do not panic about results. And remember, rizq is not only money. Relationships, companionship, love, and peace are also forms of risk. Just as your financial provision is written, your emotional provisions are written too. No one can take what Allah has written for you, and no effort can hold what He has not written. So if someone left your life, remind yourself gently. If they were truly meant for you, they would still be there. And if they are not, Allah is not depriving you. He is guiding you. What is truly yours will arrive without desperation, without humiliation, and without you having to abandon your trust in Him. Trusting Allah's Qadr is strength, not weakness. Accepting that someone was not written for you is not easy. It requires patience, humility, and deep trust in Allah. At first, it can feel like giving up, like surrendering your hopes. But in Islam, trusting Allah's decree, His Qadr, is not weakness. It is one of the greatest forms of inner strength a believer can have. Qadr means that everything happens with Allah's knowledge and wisdom. Nothing reaches you by accident, and nothing leaves your life without purpose. When a relationship ends, it is natural to feel pain, confusion, even sadness that lingers. Islam does not deny those emotions, but alongside them, it teaches acceptance, not a cold acceptance, but a trusting one. The belief that Allah chose this outcome because He knows what protects you best. Strength is not always holding on. Sometimes strength is letting go while your heart still aches, because you trust Allah sees what you cannot. It means resisting bitterness, resisting the urge to constantly ask, "Why me?" and instead saying, "Allah knows, and His knowledge is perfect." That mindset protects your heart from resentment and keeps your faith steady. Trusting Qadr also helps you move forward without fear. When you truly believe Allah is managing your life with wisdom, you stop feeling like everything depends only on your control. You still make effort, but you do not carry the heavy burden of forcing outcomes. This creates emotional balance. You hope, but you also trust. There's also healing in knowing that Allah never removes something without wisdom. Sometimes He replaces it with something better. Sometimes He gives growth, maturity, or clarity instead. And sometimes the blessing is simply the protection itself, even if you only understand it much later. A believer's heart finds peace not because life is always easy, but because they trust the one who controls life. When that trust settles deeply, heartbreak becomes lighter, not painless, but lighter. You begin to see endings not as failures, but as transitions guided by divine care. So trusting Qadr is not passive. It is active faith. It is patience combined with hope. It is continuing to make dua, continuing to improve yourself, and continuing to believe that Allah's plan is kinder than your fears. And one day, when clarity replaces confusion, you may look back and realize that what you once struggled to accept was actually one of Allah's greatest protections for your heart, your faith, and your future.